The LensKart IPO is already oversubscribed, and I'm really curious to see why is it that these big institutional investors are putting in money at this valuation? Does it even make sense? So I started digging out some data, and I'll tell you what I found. Among the top institutional players are practically all mutual funds of India like SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Kotak, Axis, DSP, Franklin Templeton, Mirae, then international investors like BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity, Singapore government. And within the past month, Radhakishan Damani as well as SBI Mutual Fund collectively have put in 190 crores at this valuation. So to understand the fundamentals, I started digging out data and started putting it in Excel. To really make good sense of it, you should ideally be comparing LensKart across two kinds of companies. One is, of course, startups that are listed in India because it's had a similar financial journey. And the second should be offline retail companies that are listed in India because only then will this analysis really make sense. So, okay, let's look at this. When you compare it to other startups, among operating EBITDA margin for the first quarter of this financial year, LensKart is at 18%, and I've removed all other incomes from this number. So here it does seem like the clear winner. In terms of how the revenue has been growing year on year for the past 3 years, all of these startups are growing phenomenally well at upwards of 30% barring Delivery and Nykaa. Zomato is at 69% as the clear winner, and LensKart is also in the green. Then from a growth rate of EBITDA perspective for the past 3 years, LensKart is at almost 90% per annum, Nykaa at 36%, and others don't even have profits during this period to calculate this number. Now let's move on to retail businesses. I've actually compared LensKart to Aditya Birla Fashion, Titan, VIP, Trent and DMart. Now, the first thing, among gross margin profiles, LensKart is clearly the winner at 69%, Aditya Birla is at 57%, and the rest are much lower from these numbers. Now, I first calculated revenue per store, but then I realized because all of their businesses and categories are different, we should ideally look at revenue per square feet. Now, for this analysis, look at this. LensKart is at about 30,000 rupees of sales per square feet per annum. DMart is at about 35,000 and Titan is at almost 130,000 per square feet per annum, with the rest being much lower. Clearly, Titan's category of also selling jewelry really helps bump up this number. But since the category of these products again is very different across all these competitors, let's go further down and look at gross margin per square feet. LensKart does about 20,000 per square feet in terms of gross margin. Titan does 27,000 per square feet, and then the others are almost like 1/4 of both LensKart and Titan. Anyway, now let's go after the growth in number of stores over the past 3 years. The clear winner here is Trent at 29% per annum, and LensKart is also in the green at about 18% per annum. In terms of revenue growth, I can see Trent beats all at 44% per annum, and LensKart is second at 34% per annum. Now, in retail, you should not just look at revenue per store or gross margin per square feet. You should also look at same store sales growth, which essentially means how much of the sale is coming or growing from the same store rather than you opening a lot more stores in the business. So when you look at this, LensKart wins at 16% per annum, Trent is at 7%, which means Trent's revenue growth may be coming from rapid store expansion and not increasing sales from the same outlets. And then of course we look at operating EBITDA, where LensKart is in the green with a similar profile as Trent. Now with this understanding, let's look at whether the valuation is making sense. So there are 3 ways to look at valuation. You look at PE multiple, EBITDA multiple and revenue multiple. In retail, you can't even calculate PE for Aditya Birla and VIP. So there's no upper limit we can establish here. So I think let's move on to the other method, which is I would want to actually disregard revenue multiple because all the categories are different. So I think EBITDA multiple is more reasonable. So because EBITDA is a better measure, I can see the range is broadly between 20x to 50x, and LensKart sits at the higher end of this band with both Trent and DMart. And I would assume it's getting this premium because of high gross margin per square feet that it's earning. Now comparing the valuation to startups, look at this. Okay, so the PE multiple may again not be the best measure because so many of them don't even have profits for you to calculate it. But LensKart is a third of Nykaa and Urban Company, and even the revenue multiple seems to be within the range, similar to Nykaa's 8.3x and Zomato's 10x. And again, quite like in retail, EBITDA multiple I think is a better measure here and not revenue multiple or PE multiple. Now, I must tell you, I'm not investing in LensKart's IPO. I don't invest in any IPO. My only exposure is to the index. I don't invest in any of these companies, which is why my only exposure is if any of them are part of the index in India. And I'm not recommending that you do invest or don't invest. But the reason I wanted to do this analysis is because a lot of times we get swayed by what one person says who is an expert, and they may be right. But I feel for a full fundamental analysis to understand a business, we should go deep. This was just one way to show you how to analyze the P&L of a business. You must pull out this data yourself, because I can make mistakes, and also analyze, ratios related to the balance sheet. And of course, do your homework and share it with someone who may need it.